going to make a start now. So, hi, we're going to look at what we're going to cover today. So we're going to cover what is cancer, can we prevent cancer, the main risk factors which can cause cancer, and how people can reduce their risk of cancer through healthy lifestyle choices, and the role of frontline workers in the prevention of cancer, inequalities and their links to cancer prevention, and support and information and resources that you might like to use. So we're going to start with what is cancer. Most cancers develop because of DNA damage. This can happen because things in our lifestyle or environment can affect our DNA. So cancer starts when abnormal cells divide in an uncontrolled way. One cell or a few cells can begin to grow and multiply too much, and this may cause a tumour. So when these cells are behaving abnormally, they're like out of control teenagers going sort of like random, not behaving in the normal cell pattern, and this causes a tumour to grow. Sometimes cancers can be due to inherited faulty genes passed down in families, but this is really rare. When somebody's got a primary tumour, that's where the cancer started. So that's where the cells started to grow. But these primary tumours that can then have cancer cells sort of like spread off from them, and they go to other parts of the body. And then when those cancerous cells start to grow into somewhere else in the body, that's called a metastasis. So what is cancer? There are 200 types of cancer. We can start to classify cancers on where they start in the body. So you can have breast cancer, lung cancer. You can have breast cancer that's spread with secondaries to the lung. So that would be secondary lung cancer. So when they're grouped in sort of groups depending on the cell type. So we've got carcinomas, which come in sort of tissue and muscle. Lymphomas, which develop in the immune system. Leukemias, which are cancers of the blood. Brain tumours, which are in part of the central nervous system. And then sarcomas, which are bone cancers. And many cancers are cured, but some people, the cancer can come back and it can be terminal. Sometimes when it can't be cured, there is treatment that can keep people sort of in remission for 1 or 2 years, maybe longer, as I say, but not all cancers cured, but a lot of cancers are cured. And the earlier that they're caught, there's more chance of them being cured. So staging and grading of cancers. When a cancer is removed or tissue is taken from a cancer, this is sent to the laboratories and they grade the cancers and they measure how big the cancer is and whether it's spread. So when a cancer has been removed by surgery, it can be small and a stage 1 cancer, or it can be large cancer and it can be graded as a stage 4 cancer. Grading also looks at how abnormal the cells are.
Grading stands for T, N and M. So the T stands for tumour, N stands for node, and M stands for metastasis. And it's a staging system, and the T, tumour, stands for the it talks about the size of the tumour. Node is whether there are any cancer cells in the lymph nodes. Again, that might be something that you're familiar with hearing. And M is describing whether the cancer has spread to different parts of the body. When we're talking about treatments, probably the one that comes to mind is chemotherapy. I think most people associate cancer treatment and chemotherapy, but there's actually quite a few different types of treatment. And often if a cancer is picked up early, surgery will be the first point of treatment. And then as the kind of cancer grows and develops, that's when the other treatments come into play. There's obviously radiotherapy, which is another one that's really, really well known. But what I will say is that there's new types of treatment coming online all of the time. So immunotherapy is one of those.
Can we prevent cancer? So I'm going to ask the questions, and if you could put the answers in the chat, that'd be really great. So how many cancer cases in the UK could be prevented through changes in lifestyle or other factors? So A, cancer can't be prevented, B, 1 in 10, C, 9 in 10, or D, around 4 in 10.
Yeah,
Some
so
fours,
far,
C's and
mostly
D's.
D's. Got a C, B, bit of a variation coming in. Another B, another one for C. Yeah, so
That's great. The correct answer is actually D, 4 in 10. So quite a lot of cancers, that's sort of nearly half of cancer can be prevented, which is quite surprising, really. So what are the main risk factors for cancer? A, smoking, B, being older, C, family history, D, drinking alcohol, or E, using deodorants? All of the above. But we want to know which one's the main one. Smoking seems to be quite popular. Family history.
lots of A's, lots of smoking. Natalia has said being older.
Smoking's right up there, but the actual main risk factor for cancer is B, being older. So which out of the following does not cause cancer? So being overweight, drinking alcohol, being stressed, being unsafe in the sun, smoking, or eating an unhealthy diet.
Laura said, wow, she was obviously surprised at the being older one. Everybody's always surprised at that one, aren't they, Lisa?
I think smoking gets it, doesn't it?
Mm.
Smoking is a big thing, but actually it's your age that's the biggest risk factor.
Another thing to look forward to in old age, then, eh?
Absolutely. So we've got F, C, C, C. There's quite a few C's, isn't there? So I think, yeah, the one that is not attributed to causing cancer is being stressed.
What they normally say, Lisa, is that often being stressed leads to some of those other, can lead to some of those other unhealthy lifestyle behaviours. So sometimes when people are stressed, they're more likely to drink or smoke more or eat unhealthily. So there's kind of an indirect link between stress and cancer, but not a direct link. I think that's definitely a myth out there that people think stress and cancer are linked.
Yeah, but like you say, the other behaviours that you do when you're stressed do cause cancer. So can we prevent cancer? Looking at this slide, the size of the circles in this slide denote of how much cancer is attributed to that actual activity. So smoking is the biggest circle. So, that's the biggest thing that we can do for our lifestyle to stop smoking can help prevent cancer. But closely behind that is keeping a healthy weight. So obesity and smoking are the two sort of main things that we can do to reduce our cancer risk and prevent it. Being safe in the sun and chemicals, substances at work, and protecting against HPV infections. Unfortunately, drinking less alcohol, eating a high fibre diet, and as you can see, the dots get smaller as you go down to air pollution and processed meats, because the evidence is sort of not as strong with those factors. But smoking, healthy weights, safe in the sun are very much very closely linked in ways that we can prevent cancer. Smoking is the most important preventable cause of cancer in the world, and it causes around 54,000 cases every year. And then this infographic sort of shows you what cancers smoking causes. So again, the biggest circle is the one that it causes the most of. So it's not surprising that lung cancer is attributed to smoking. That's the biggest cancer. And then esophageal, larynx, and sort of like the head and neck cancers are all not surprising. But I think when you look further down here, these are very big circles for bladder cancer and bowel cancer and pancreatic cancer. So those cancers as well are attributed to smoking, and not everyone's aware of that. They just automatically think lung cancer, and it is lung cancer, but it is also other cancers. So, you know, stopping smoking can help prevent more than just lung cancer. The best thing that people who do smoke can do is to stop smoking completely, but this is just a diagram showing you what's the most successful way of stopping smoking. So sort of just going cold turkey and quitting is obviously not the best way, and some people are successful but not so many. Just going out and buying your own nicotine replacement over the counter is also not very successful, but the research has shown that e-cigarettes and medication that's given on prescription is much more successful. But actually the most successful way of stopping smoking is support, counselling and medication as well. So if you know somebody that would like to stop smoking, sort of point them in that direction, I would say. E-cigarettes, relatively new product, probably not that new, but new in the fact that we don't know what the long-term effects of them are. They're much less harmful than tobacco cigarettes, and there's not the heat in them that there is in the tobacco and the cigarettes. But it's sort of not proven. They're proven as a helpful way of helping you stop smoking, but what the long-term damage of e-cigarettes is, that information is sort of not known yet, and we won't know that for some years. But it does help smokers quit by using e-cigarettes instead of smoking. So just a little bit about overweight and obesity, because I said sort of smoking and obesity are the two main risk factors. So it's the second biggest cause of cancer, and in women, sort of obesity is sort of nearly overtaking smoking as the most common cause of cancer. And again, the dots on the side, the bigger the dot, the more the link is with obesity. So breast cancer is one of the biggest ones, and bowel, cancer of the uterus, esophagus, and kidney are all quite common cancers that are linked with obesity, which I don't think everybody's quite so aware of that. Many factors that influence our weight. I mean, it's not that easy just to go out there and lose weight, and as a country and as a world, we're becoming more and more obese, and these are some of the factors that impact on our weight. So unavoidable unhealthy food adverts, confusing food labels, sort of like information saying you need to eat this, don't eat that, all the deals of sort of 2-for-1 deals, sort of like more sedentary working, increased sort of fat, salt and sugar in our diet, fast food, cheap food that's fast food, everything's supersized. It's sort of like very difficult for people, isn't it, to sort of lose weight. Jenny, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to say, as you mentioned there, the factors that impact on weight. I mean, I'm like a lot of people, I suppose. I'm of a certain age and I find it a struggle to lose weight. Do you have any sort of hints or tips or places that you would point people in the direction of? I mean, obviously I know there's things like Slimming World and Weight Watchers, but I mean, generally in Thrive, we try and point people in the direction of the NHS choices. I mean, I don't know whether you would agree with that, or whether somewhere else that you'd recommend.
Yeah, we've got some resources as we go through the presentation, but yeah, definitely.
Okay, no, that would be really useful. Thank you.
Yeah, there are some sort of, so we'll talk about that as we go through, but yeah, there's some local stuff as well. So I think, yeah, like you say, it's more than just the slimming clubs really, because they can help some people, but they don't help other people. And sometimes the slimming clubs, you can get into a negative sort of cycle of losing weight, putting it back on, losing weight, putting it back on, and deprivation. So I think it's a healthy way.
I don't like the group bit either, to be honest. I don't like going and sitting and chatting for 2 hours. It's a waste of my time. I'd rather be doing something else. So
hearing about other people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we will talk about the resources as we go through, but yeah. So maintaining a healthy weight, the best evidence shows that people who maintain healthy weights are at lower risk of cancer and other diseases as well, really. And this is the sort of like what they suggest is the healthy body mass index. But these are 10 tops to losing weight. And keeping a regular meal time, cutting down on calories. I'm not sure always lower fat can be higher sugar, but cutting down on calories as a whole. Walking more, healthy snacks as opposed to sugary snacks, looking at the food labels, which can be confusing, can't they? Walking the way off, trying for your 10 steps a day, healthy portions. We've got very sedentary jobs, getting up, having a break from your sitting, replacing sugary drinks with water. Focusing on your food when you're eating, so not eating on the go, not eating at your desk, not eating in front of your computer when you're not really thinking about what you're doing, and trying to get your 5 a day in if you can. So they're generally sort of 10 top tips, but it's not always as easy as that. Healthy diets can prevent 1 in 20 cancers. Diet indirectly affects cancer through keeping a healthy weight, and 28% of bowel cancers are caused by eating too little fibre. Eating foods high in fibre can reduce your risk of bowel cancer, and processed and red meats are linked with causing bowel cancer. There's lots of food we hear about in the media causing or preventing cancer, either sugar, but there's no specific evidence to say that sugar causes cancer. It's being overweight and the way the cells are behaving when you're overweight, and there's more risk of inflammation that is linked with the cancer, not with the sugar. But it is important to try and keep a healthy weight. I like this healthy plate balanced meal plate better than some of the sort of like the old plates. So half of your plate should be vegetables and salad, a quarter should be protein, and a quarter should be carbs. So it's not about having no carbs. You can have meals where your carbohydrates reduced or carb-free meals, but I think it's more about balancing your plate so that you feel full. You've got your protein gets you feeling full. You've got energy from your carbohydrate, and then you've got the healthy benefits of your salad and your vegetables. This is where I'm the fun sponge. And alcohol, cutting down on alcohol can reduce your cancer risk. Drink alcohol causes around 11,000 cases of cancer every year in the UK. Alcohol gets broken down into harmful chemicals that affect your body, and making the cancer more likely to develop. So this is part of how it destroys the cells. And liver cancer, you probably think are probably related to alcohol, but actually when you look at the circle, it's quite small for liver. It's significant, but it's not the biggest circle. It's one of the smallest ones. But bowel and breast cancer are very big circles, and so is cancer of the mouth and the throat, like the sort of head and neck cancers are related with alcohol, and esophagus, which is not surprising because the alcohol's going down your esophagus. But breast and bowel, everyone's not so sort of like familiar with it. They're very closely linked with alcohol consumption. So the more you cut down on your alcohol, the more you lower your risks. And this is just sort of an indication of units, and we should be sort of 14 units a week or less. So unfortunately, a bottle of wine is 10 units, and I think people don't always realise that how much is in a bottle of wine really, or a glass of wine. They soon add up really, and you don't necessarily have small glasses of wine now. It's usually large glasses, isn't it? Pints, 3 units a pint. 1 and a little bit of a bottle of wine would be your weekly allowance, really, to keep within the safe rules, safe guidance. I mean, 14 units, they're sort of saying it's not safe, but it's a more reasonable amount to drink. The sun, overexposure to UV radiation causes around 13 cases of melanoma each year. UV rays can damage the DNA in our cells, and this damage builds up and causes a growth called skin cancer. And this is the same process whether the UVs from the sun or the sunbeds. So the sunbeds and the sun are equally damaging to the skin. So reducing our risk of skin cancer. Spend more time in the shade, particularly around 11 till 3. T-shirt, wide brim hat, sunglasses, and use a sunscreen with an SPF of 30 or 4 or 5 stars. And generously apply it and reapply it regularly, especially after swimming. And that's in this country and abroad, and it is getting better that people put sun cream on in this country as well. Being active is good for me. So physical activity can help you lose weight, keep you a healthy weight, and reduce your risk of 13 different types of cancer. And if you're doing a lot, it can help prevent breast and bowel cancer. Being active also reduces your risk of osteoarthritis, depression, dementia, strokes, falls, diabetes, heart disease. So activity is really important in preventing cancer. And also, if you've got cancer, physical activity is very helpful to help reduce fatigue, and it also helps prevent cancer recurring as well. There's some evidence to show that physical activity and being active can reduce your risk of recurrence if you've got cancer. So there's lots of reasons why being physically active is good for us. It helps move food through your bowels. It reduces the levels of inflammation, keeps a healthy weight, and can help your hormone changes, which all help prevent cancer. So other risks of cancer are risks at work. So exposure to asbestos can cause lung cancer called mesothelioma. The HPV virus can cause cervical cancer. Exposure to air pollution can cause around 3.5 cases of lung cancer every year. Radiation from X-rays can cause up to 7,000 cancer cases in a year. HRT and breastfeeding are linked with higher risks of cancer, but it's sort of like weighing out what the risk is to the benefits with those drugs, really. So another way of preventing cancer is the HPV vaccine, which is given to girls and boys at school, and that helps prevent cervical cancer and oral cancers. But also attending your screening appointments when you're eligible. Bowel screening can detect bowel cancer, obviously, but it also can detect polyps, and these polyps might develop into tumours at a later date. So having a polyp removed while you're having a colonoscopy, if you're being screened for bowel cancer, could prevent cancer in the future. Cervical screening detects the abnormal cells, and then that can be removed and prevent you developing cervical cancer. And breast screening detect sort of very small or precancerous breast cancers, which treated early can help increase your chance of cure, really. So the screening programs in England, we've got bowel screening, and this is for men and women between the ages of 50 and 75. It was from 60 to 75, but they're bringing it down to 50. So they're doing that in stages. So some people will be getting invited who are 55, 56. But every 2 years, it's a kit that comes at home, and you have to do 1 sample of poo, pop this little stick in, put it in a tube, and put it back in the post. Really simple, get results back within a couple of weeks, and it's picking up bowel cancer early and saving many lives. So look out for your screening when it comes, and do it. Breast screening every 3 years from women 50 to 70, and that's a mammogram done as a clinic or a mobile unit. Cervical screening, this is smear tests for women or somebody with a cervix from 25 to 49 every 3 years, and then it goes to every 5 years. It's done at the GPs by the practice nurses. and even if you've had the HPV vaccine, you still need to go and have your smears done, because you can still get cervical cancer even if you've had your HPV vaccine. And then there's the lung health check project that we've got going on in Coventry. This is checking people for potential lung cancer early. So this is a screening program that's looking at people who've ever smoked and looking at their risk factors, and if they think they're high risk, then they go on and have a CT scan. And this has been very successful pilot, picking up early lung cancers, which have then become curative lung cancers. And it looks as though this is going to be a national programme in 2024-25. That's coming. So, but in Coventry and Warwickshire, is it just Coventry, Kate?
It's Coventry and Rugby.
And Rugby, yeah.
Yeah.
So
they were the pilot site.
Yeah. So if you live in Coventry or Rugby, and you're over 55, you may well have been called for a health check. Having the lung health check is a phone call to begin with, and then if they think you fit the criteria for CT scan, then you're called for a CT scan. So hand over to you, Kate, for early diagnosis. Has anyone got any other questions?
Roy, did you put your hands up?
Yeah, hi there. Is there anything planned for prostate cancer?
I had a feeling you were going to ask that, Roy. I don't know. You go, Lisa, go on.
For a screening programme to work, a national screening programme, it has to be proven to save lives. So they've found that, like with the bowel screening, that it does save lives. And this is the pilot with the lung screening, is it actually they're picking up cancers early and it's saving lives. There isn't actually a test that can pick up prostate cancer early and save lives. So if the PSA test, which is a blood test, is not specific enough to identify cancer and pick it up early enough to save people's lives. So it's quite a complicated thing with the PSA, but lots of things can raise your PSA. So if you've had vigorous exercise, or you've had sex, or within 48 hours of having your PSA done, if you've got an infection, if you've on certain medication, all those will raise your PSA. So just having a high PSA, you can have a high PSA and not have cancer, but also you can have a normal PSA and have prostate cancer. So it's not like a rigid enough test. I think in time there'll be a PSA test and an MRI scan, which may be a screening program, because that would be more effective way of picking up prostate cancer. But I think there are things that the risk factors for prostate cancer. So if you're black, your ethnicity is black, you've got a higher risk, double the risk of getting prostate cancer. If you've got a family history, you've got a much more chance of getting prostate cancer. So if brother, uncle, father, have got prostate cancer, then you probably should go and see your GP if you're over 50, because you have got a higher risk. So it's those risk factors. And also with the family risk factor, if you've got a mother or a sister with breast or ovarian cancer, that increases your cancer risk of prostate cancer. So not everyone's aware of that. So there's a risk factors that should go to your GP for, but there isn't a screening program that's effective enough for somebody with no symptoms or family history, just like the general population, that would actually save lives at the moment. But we do hope something will come with prostate cancer. But the PSA test on its own is not enough. It needs to probably be PSA test and an MRI scan, I think.
Yeah, with prostate cancer, and I can't comment on other cancers because I don't know anything about them. But it's asymptomatic, do they call it? So you don't get any symptoms.
Early stages.
Yeah.
So it is quite hard to identify until something happens, really, that causes you a problem. Yeah,
absolutely. So it's like the people that are higher risk need to be more closely sort of monitored, really. but like you say, there's no symptoms, so that's what makes it quite complicated. And PSA on its own is not particularly effective, but I think if you've got a selection of those risk factors, a conversation with your GP and looking at your PSA would be helpful. And you know, I'm not saying you shouldn't do that, but actually for the general population, which is what screening programs are for the whole population, is that they've not all got those extra risk factors.
Okay,
But
cheers, thanks.
That's why it's not a national program at the moment, but I think something will come.
Okay, cheers.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about early diagnosis of cancer and also what you can do in your role as a frontline worker, and also we're going to talk a little bit about some of the inequalities that exist in cancer. Okay, so we've talked a lot, Lisa's talked a lot about prevention, and she's also touched on screening, and the reason why that we've started with those two topic areas is that by preventing cancer happening in the first place, or by screening, we are trying to pick up cancer earlier. We are trying to prevent cancer. We're trying to diagnose cancer earlier. And the reason for this is that cancer that's diagnosed at an early stage, before it's had chance to get too big or spread, is more likely to be treated successfully. So once the cancer has started to spread, started to grow, maybe move to other organs, the treatment becomes much more difficult, and generally a person's chance of survival are going to be much lower. So if I just show you this infographic, this is again just comparing two different types of cancer, but also comparing the stage at which the cancer is diagnosed. So looking at lung cancer, if you diagnose lung cancer early at stage 1 or 2, around 8 in 10 people will survive for 1 year or more. However, if that lung cancer is diagnosed at a later stage, so stage 3 or 4, less than 2 in 10 people will survive. So there's a huge difference. Similarly, if we're talking about bowel cancer, more than 9 in 10 people will survive if they are diagnosed early with bowel cancer. However, if they're diagnosed late, this drops down to 4 in 10. So straight away, you can see that the huge difference in survival rates and the stage of diagnosis. And you might be thinking, well, you know, how can we diagnose early? What can we do in our role? And obviously, there's many things that the NHS can do in their side of things. But how can we influence at the front end of the pathway? And obviously, we've talked about screening and the importance of going to screening when you're eligible. But one of the other things is that we can help people spot cancer early. Okay, and that isn't about learning all of the hundreds of different signs and symptoms of cancer, but what it is about is getting to know your body. So being aware of what's normal for you and being aware of any changes and signs and symptoms. I'm going to show you some of the main signs and symptoms in a moment. Also having the confidence to talk to your doctor if there has been a change. So this is about being open, being thorough, so making sure that you're sharing all of your concerns, also being stubborn. So if you're sent away or you don't feel that you've been listened to, persisting and going back to speak to your doctor if the symptoms don't improve. And then finally looking at your screening invite. So Lisa's explained that there are 3 national screening programmes at the moment, about to become 4 in the next couple of years. You need to be registered with your GP to be invited, but also just being aware of the information that will be provided with your screening invitation and making sure that the decision you make is an informed decision. And that's obviously, you know, screening isn't compulsory, but making sure that you're fully sort of genned up on what screening is all about and the reasons why. Okay, I hope everybody can see this okay. So this I mean, often when I'm chatting on calls, you'll notice me looking up on my wall. I've got a huge poster with all of the signs and symptoms of cancer, and there are hundreds. And often it's about one symptom partnered with another symptom, and that's what's suspicious, and maybe would make your doctor think, right, I want to do some further investigations. But the diagram that I've put on your screen is some of those. Sometimes they're referred to as red flags, but some of those really common symptoms which are associated with cancer. I'm just going to pick out a few. Again, obviously, for some of these symptoms, they will only happen in men, or they may only happen in women, but some of them will be across both genders. So straight away, let's talk about breast cancer. Any changes to your breast, size, shape, feel, lumps, discharge, any changes to your skin. But then also thinking about maybe some of your head and neck, your throat cancers. So thinking about croaky voice, hoarseness, ulcers that don't go away, coughing, a persistent cough. That's one that's really well known with all the kind of lung cancer campaigns. And then thinking about some of your lower GI stuff, so appetite loss, weight loss, abdominal pains, feeling full, maybe blood in your poo, maybe blood in your pee, vaginal bleeding. There's a load of symptoms which really, if you experience them for an extended period of time, you should be making an appointment to go and speak to your doctor. I really like this diagram because I think it's quite simple and it's easy. And again, I think, apologies, I've forgotten the lady's name who was Jenny, sorry. We talked about, what can we talk to our not patients, our customers, that's probably a better word. And we've got some leaflets, which I'll just show you here on the screen here. If you wanted a supply of those, I'm going to put some links in the presentation in a moment. They're really good to hand out to people if there's any concerns.
Yes, please. Can you?
Yeah, no
we'll
worries.
arrange to collect some from you, and then we can give them out to our.
I'll provide all the links. Most our favourite materials really are Macmillan and Cancer Research. They're the best quality, but we've also got your NHS stuff as well, and I've provided all the links.
Brilliant, thanks.
Okay, so just thinking about when we were asked to do this presentation, obviously Lisa and I have a bit of a chat with Jenny about what was going to be in the content, and bearing in mind that a lot of the work that Lisa and I do is with health professionals. However, actually when we're talking about prevention of cancer and early diagnosis, any frontline worker that is in contact with customers, that is speaking to customers, they have a role in the prevention of cancer. And you may be aware of something called MEC, making every contact counts. And I think when I looked at Thrive and I was trying to learn about what you do, I believe that MEC is something that you're all really familiar with. It stands for making every contact counts, and it's about taking opportunities to deliver consistent and concise health and wellbeing information. And the purpose of that, delivering that message, is to encourage individuals to engage in conversations and potentially take action. Okay, and it's really, really simple, but the purpose of MEC is that it recognises that staff in health and social care, local authority, voluntary sectors, you have thousands and thousands of contacts with people every day, and you are in an ideal position to influence. You're in an ideal position to support health and well-being and help customers make those changes. Just seeing your comment, Jenny, I totally agree. The visual stuff is really, really powerful. Okay, so making every contact count. I think when it first came out, which was many, many years ago, it was very much about the health stuff. So it was really about stopping smoking, reducing your alcohol, changing your eating, making your eating more healthy, being more physically active. So all of those important points around health. However, I think as MEC has developed, we've realised that actually it's not just about the health side of things, it's about the well-being as well. And yes, I know we've shown you lots of evidence about the health links with cancer, but also we know how important that well-being is as well, you know, improving mental health and well-being. And some of that can be associated with somebody's living environment, somebody's relationships, somebody's employment, and I know all of the MEC resources include stuff on this. So it's very, very simple. They break it down into the 3 A's, which again you might be familiar with: ask, advise, and act. So ask is about asking the individuals about their lifestyle and changes they may wish to make when there is an appropriate opportunity to do so. I think that's a really important point to make when we talk about MEC. You know, sometimes if you're chatting to a customer, it may not be appropriate to start chatting to them about the fact that they're still smoking, you know, and obviously as professionals you will know when those appropriate opportunities are. Advising appropriately on the lifestyle issues once raised, and again there are many resources that exist to support you with that. And acting, so the action is by offering information, signposting individuals, or actually referring the individuals as well. I provided links to both MEC Coventry and MEC Warwickshire. I wasn't sure if there was people from Warwickshire on the call today, so apologies if there isn't, but the links are there, so please go away and have a read of those if you can. And I've mentioned resources. This is just a tiny little selection of all the resources that exist out there. Some of these Elise has already shown you today, but there's loads of resources out there. There's the Eat Well guide. I actually prefer the simple version that we showed you on the slide. It's a bit complicated, isn't it? Yeah. But it's the same kind of idea about splitting your plate into, you know, the majority's got to be your healthy fruit and veg, but making sure you've got protein and making sure you've got your whole grain and your bread and your rice and pulses and that kind of thing as well. Again, I'm going to show you, here's the links.
Natalia's got a hand up.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Right, I'll just put it up.
Hi, Kate.
I'm
sorry to interrupt. You just showed this selection of posters. Any chance we can get them so I can display them at work?
Yeah, so what I will do, we don't hold stock, Lisa and I, we work from home, both of us, so we don't have the stock, but what I put on here is the links to all of the resources. There are millions of resources out there, but I've picked the main 3 for you. So there's the cancer research, that's a direct link. Hopefully you can see the publications website that's come up, and then Macmillan. Oh, you can't see, it's just me. When you click on it, the links will work. Macmillan are the other, and then the NHS Live Well. And that refers to, we mentioned stop smoking, healthy eating, mental health and well-being, being physically active. The NHS Live Well website includes information and resources on all of those. We mentioned posters. The other thing is obviously all of these resources are available in a form, like leaflet form, but also they're digitally as well. So if you've got screens in, I don't know how you guys work, but if you work in office spaces where customers come in, there's an opportunity to put these resources on screens and that kind of thing as well. Sorry, go on, Lisa.
I was just going to say they're all free as well, so you can order them all free. Whatever you feel would be helpful, but have a look on the websites and have a browse, and you can just order them, and they usually come within a couple of days.
And then just another thing, I'm going to talk a little bit about inequalities. I'm just checking my eye on the time, don't want to run out of time, but it's just thinking about the fact that not everybody will be able to access the information, the standard information. So resources do exist for people with learning disabilities, but easy read leaflets can also be used for people who have health literacy issues or don't have English as their first language, because it's images. So again, put some links on the page. The Easy Health information is absolutely excellent, and also some of the CR UK and Macmillan stuff is there as well. Okay, we talked, I know Jenny mentioned services as well, and I know that I've had a query from Anne Deville about stop smoking services. I just want to share with you the local services. So again, I'm sure you're fully aware of Healthy Lifestyles Coventry. This is your health and wellbeing service, so you can directly refer into this service. You'll see on the screen all of the different services that it provides, and there's your stop smoking service, and what you would do is refer a customer or a colleague or whoever you're talking about to this stop smoking service, and obviously these services are free. If a patient ends up being prescribed some of the stop smoking medication, depending on obviously what you pay for your prescriptions, you may have to pay for a prescription, but the service is free. And there's loads, there's alcohol, active, diet, and some of the diet stuff is around exercise, but also some of the weight management services. We are in Stoke-on-Trent, so will we be eligible? There's a curveball. I didn't realise we had people outside of Coventry today. What I will do, Anne, is I will find the equivalent in Staffordshire. There will be a stop smoking service, and they're all free, they're all NHS, so I will provide, not to use Healthy Lifestyle Services as they are Coventry, but they may have something locally. Leave that with us. I will do some investigating and see if I can find the equivalent. I've also put your Warwickshire ones on as well. So there's your Fitter Futures, which is your weight management and your physical activity. Quit for Good, that's your Warwickshire stop smoking services, and then Health and Wellbeing, Warwickshire and Coventry. There's information on there as well. Sorry, Jenny, did you want to come in?
Yeah, it was just really to talk about Healthy Lifestyle Service, because obviously, as you just said, they are Coventry only. Predominantly people on this call are Coventry and Warwickshire businesses that are doing Thrive. However, Thrive is a West Midlands based initiative, and we do sometimes put out we put out invites to those people that are in other areas. So what happens generally is it depends where your local public health spend their money, really.
Absolutely,
and as you quite rightly said, even the difference between Coventry and Warwickshire, Coventry Healthy Lifestyle Service covers a lot more than what you can get in Warwickshire. It's just where they choose to spend their money. So yeah, there will be something, and obviously there are national resources, aren't there, that everybody can use. I apologise, but these webinars, because we run them, they're predominantly for Coventry and Warwickshire, so they tend to be geared up for that. So, but there probably will be something in their local area if they contact their local authority and find out what's available. They should be free.
And in Coventry and Warwickshire, the Healthy Lifestyles and the Fitter Futures both offer like 12-week programs of diet and exercise.
They do on the weight management, both of them do. That's correct. But I know that in Warwickshire, they don't offer things like the NHS health checks. They offer them in Coventry, but they don't offer them in Warwickshire. So I know, because we have clients in both, and there is a bit of an anomaly. And even with Warwickshire, sometimes there's things that are available. For example, with the weight management, they offer Slimming World, a 12-week programme, but that's only available in Nuneaton, Bedworth and Rugby. If you're in Leamington, Warwick and Stratford, you're not going to get that. So there are anomalies across the patch as well. You just really have to find out what's available in your area.
And you can go and talk to your practice nurse and GP and ask and they'll do the referrals to what they can refer you for and what support they've got. The
NHS Live Well, I believe there's a search on there for local services. So I would have a look at that as well. And that may show you the stop smoking services in Staffordshire if you go on to NHS Live Well. So I'll just whiz through these. I just wanted to mention Inequalities, a word that we're hearing a lot at the moment in our line of work, and I'm sure it's the same for all of you on this call today. And I just wanted to talk about inequalities in the cancer world, really. So we all know what inequalities are, but just a reminder that they are avoidable. They're unfair, and there are differences in health between different groups of people. And when we're talking about cancer, the inequalities exist in every stage of the cancer pathway. So not only do they exist at the front end, so cancer prevention, thinking about unhealthy lifestyle behaviours and how that links in with cancer, but the inequalities exist through screening, diagnosis, even experience of treatment, and their experience of surviving cancer and the rates of survival. I'll show you some stats in a moment. And then when we think about those preventable risk factors, which obviously Lisa's covered earlier on for cancer, they are often inequitably distributed in the population as well. So what happens is that we have different cancer incidence between different groups of people. So people, for example, who live in deprived areas are more likely to experience different types of health inequalities. And here's an example, because tobacco is so damaging to health, difference in smoking rates among specific groups in the population translate to different rates of illness or mortality or health inequalities. So you can see why when we talk about health inequalities, we can see that they're actually avoidable and they're unfair. So just some stats to really show you what I'm talking about when we look at deprivation. There's a huge amount of evidence around deprivation and cancer. So the most deprived populations have the worst cancer experiences and outcome, have worse experiences than the least deprived. Again, you know, really unfair. So 30,000 more new cancer cases a year, higher mortality rates, so more deaths, and also lower survival for those populations that live in deprived areas. And then just thinking about those risk factors, apologies, that's a really busy slide and I don't like busy slides, so I'm really sorry about that. When we're thinking about smoking, rates are consistently higher in more deprived groups. Obesity is more prevalent among the most deprived 10% of children. More disadvantaged socioeconomic groups have experienced lower health literacy. And obviously this is linked to unhealthy behaviours when we look at poor diet, smoking, lack of physical activity. People from more deprived populations are less likely to recognise signs and symptoms. Obviously we've talked about that earlier. People from deprived areas report more barriers to seeking help. They're more likely to present in an emergency, which means they haven't gone to a GP with any signs and symptoms, then they've ended up in A&E with severe symptoms, and they have worse cancer survival. Another group that experience health inequalities are men. They experience worse cancer outcomes. There's higher levels of alcohol consumption and higher smoking rates than women. And men experience barriers accessing services. So, for example, opening hours, they can't work the appointment system. They perceive GP practices as services aimed at women. And then ethnic minority groups in cancer, again, lots and lots of evidence out there about different experiences, different rates of cancer. So I'll just pick a few. Evidence suggests that Asian and Black women with breast cancer and Black men with prostate cancer have worse survival, less likely to experience a positive experience of care. Asian and Black people more lower rates of cancer for the majority of cancer types compared with white people. So that's an interesting one. Sometimes it's actually the opposite, and thinking about why that is, and you know, what are the reasons for this. And then finally, Black and Asian people far lower rates of melanoma skin cancer than white people. So that's just a bit of research. But then looking at the experience of cancer, there's delays in diagnosis, so white people are diagnosed faster, and why is that? And also people from ethnic minority groups are less likely to engage in cancer screening with consequent poor health outcomes. And then finally, thinking about learning disabilities, again, there's a lot of evidence to show that people with learning disabilities are more likely to die from cancers of the digestive organs, but they're less likely to smoke and drink alcohol, but they are more likely to be overweight or obese. And then let's think about screening. When we talk about cervical, breast and bowel screening, the uptake is lower for people with learning disabilities, and obviously the results of not attending screening, which we've talked about, and obviously, you know, the barriers that people with learning disabilities experience. Lots to do with communication and not understanding what's required. A lot of it's about attitudes and assumptions of health professionals saying, well, we don't think you need to have your cervical screening, and you know, and how we need to challenge that. Okay, so just finally, how do we close the cancer inequality gap? Well, goodness me, if we had the answer to that, we would be a lot we would make much more difference in our day-to-day work, and I'm sure this is something that you discuss in your role as well. But just a couple of recommendations, really. Taking every opportunity to talk to patients about preventing cancer, and obviously we've talked about that with you today, thinking about MEC. Making sure easy read information is available, so if you are going to display all of this information that we've talked about, make sure some of it's available in an easy read as well. Making sure that patients are aware that they can bring family members along, and that works for ethnic minority groups and also learning disability populations as well. Opportunistic discussions, which we've talked about, and making use of commission, translation and interpreting services, some obvious ones on there. And then I just finally wanted to show you again some of the easy read cancer prevention resources that are out there. As we just picked a selection, but there's stop smoking, staying healthy, diet, a general prevention leaflet, and these can be used with a whole range of different population groups. Goodness, we're on 11 o'clock, so there's the end. Goodness me, I was watching the time then. And then there's our email addresses. I understand that sometimes in these forums people don't always want to ask questions, and often Lisa and I will get a question after, maybe a personal question. Lisa's a nurse, so we've got a bit of clinical input as well. So if people want to ask us any personal questions, please feel free. Obviously everything will be confidential and we'd be happy to help. But anybody got any questions that they do want to ask? We've still got quite a few on actually, which is really good. Good to see. Hi Jenny.
Thanks Jenny for putting in the Staffordshire information.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, I did a
That
quick
saves me a
Google
job.
search, and actually they do have quite a bit, so it's
Do
pretty
they?
good.
That's interesting. You're so right. Jenny, I was looking at a Welsh website the other day because there were some great MEC resources, and
Yeah,
they massively invest in their public health in comparison to what in England. I was really surprised. It's sad really, isn't it? It's about who prioritises what in each area.
it is. I mean, again,
Yeah.
I suppose each local authority gets a certain amount of funding for their public health, and then they have to
Yeah.
decide where they're going to spend it.
Yeah.
I have to say, personally, I was really interested in the last little bit you did around health inequalities, because obviously, as you're probably well aware, Coventry is a marmot city.
Absolutely, yeah.
And we're always talking about the differences, the health inequalities within Coventry. And actually, those businesses in Coventry might be very interested to have a look. If you search for the number 10 bus, they actually did. Obviously, the number 10 bus now has changed, the numbers changed, but at the time when they did the research, they got a number 10 bus, which literally goes from one side of the city, fortunately where I live, which is sort of the eastern green end of Coventry, and the number 10 used to go all the way over to sort of Potters Green, Bell Green, and the difference in life expectancy, well, I'm not going to spoil it for you because I'll let you go and look at it, but actually the difference is actually phenomenal.
It's years, isn't it?
It is. It's quite a lot of years as well. So it just shows you, as you said, it's all about, people's access to certain facilities and services. But it is quite shocking. But yeah, the health inequalities side, and I think particularly for those employers we've got that are in the areas of the city that are perhaps not so affluent, or their staff are coming from in those areas, that I think it's really important to highlight the importance to them of insisting on like you said, be pushy with your GP if you feel you're being fobbed off, if you feel there's something really wrong with you, then you need to push it. And again, I think the other thing that you said is often the translation of leaflets and information. I know particularly, Natalia, you've got a lot of non-English people that work for your organisation, so it's about being able to present the information in something they're going to understand. Now, actually, a diagram, like some of those posters with sort of pictures of body areas, I think that's a universal language.
Absolutely,
you don't actually need to read what part of the body it is, so that might be really useful for you.
And the easy read is pictures predominantly as well, so like the easy read booklets about exercise and avoiding cancer, there's lots of pictures in those, so they're good for people that their first language is not English.
Definitely. The other thing I was going to say, I know you very kindly said we can share the slides if people fill in the evaluation form, and obviously this is going to be available on YouTube. Is this something that you would be interested in particularly our larger employers? Would you be interested in either going in and doing either a short workshop or a webinar with any of those, or is that not something you would do?
Yeah. More than
You would do that?
Yeah, just get in touch with us, Jenny. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I think there will be some of our larger employers, well, not necessarily all the larger ones, but there may be, you know, we have businesses basically from sort of 10 employees upwards. So, you know, if there's something you can do, it might be that you do a webinar for a smaller one, or it might be that you can go into a workplace in some of our larger ones. Would anybody be interested in that? Would that be something you would like, Natalia? Or sorry, I'm picking on you, or anybody else?
Something in the chat.
Yes.
Somebody else put it in the chat.
Yes,
So I
please.
can't see, I don't know why I can't see the chat. I can only see what I put in. I can't see other people's posts.
Anne's put something in, and
yeah, I can't see that.
So, and I think, you know, if you are in the workplace and there's conversations going ahead, you know, people are having conversations about the bowel screening, they might bring it up. One man might talk to another one and say, I've had my kit come, if they're of that age.
Yeah.
I think it's just about having positive conversations that you really need to do that screening, or women, younger women in the workplace, giving them time to go and get their cervical screening done. You know, that going and having that smear test, you need to probably go in the morning, don't you? You want to go nice, fresh, clean in the morning appointment. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's allowing people that time to go for that appointment, because one of the barriers for that screening is that people can't get in to their GP surgery. They can't get an appointment. They can't get appointments at the weekend. Some GPs are offering evening appointments and things. But if you work full time and you've got family at the weekend, it's a barrier to booking that appointment. But even like that positive thing of like, yeah, of course, you know, you can have time, that hour or what it is, to go and have that appointment before work. It helps, doesn't it, encourage people to go, because that is one of the barriers that
and I agree. I mean, one of the other barriers that I've heard of, and I don't know how true this is again, in some cultures, men don't want the women to go for that kind of check. And I think if they're in the workplace and they can go whilst they're at work and they don't have to say anything, it might encourage a few more to actually go ahead and do that. Whereas if they're going at a time where their partner knows and doesn't want them to go for some, I don't know what reasons, but there must be some reasons they have.
That is another barrier. Yeah.
Okay, that's been fantastic. Has anybody got any further questions for either Lisa or Kate at this point? Sorry we've run over a little bit, but I think that's been really, really informative and useful.
I just replied to Anne, asked a question about bowel kits in the workplace. What a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
But no, I'm afraid not. And we've talked about this with handing them out in GP practices before, and it's a no-go, unfortunately. But it's to do with I don't know if anybody's ever been to the bowel screening hub, but it's quite a complicated process of kind of scanning barcodes, and obviously making sure the right kit is attributed to the right patient. So it's quite high risk to hand them out in the workplace. So no, that's not an option. But the best thing you can do really is continue to promote bowel screening and making sure people know when they're eligible, and how to get a kit if they've lost their kit, and all of that's in the leaflet, and just making sure people understand the importance of it, really. Bowel screening is a funny one. It's the one that's at home, so it should be the easiest one to do, but the uptake is the lowest, probably because people just don't want to do it. It's not pleasant, is it? And but it's 2 minutes of your life, which could save your life. So Sorry,
I nagged my other half because he had his in the post and it sat on the side for about a week, and I kept saying, go and put that in the bathroom so it reminds you when you go. Anyway, I nagged him the other day and he's done it, so it's been posted.
It's done. And I think if you've thrown the kit away because you thought, I'm not doing that, you can phone up and get another one sent out to you.
He didn't throw it away, but it sat on the side, and I kept saying, have you done that yet? Have you done that yet? I'm going to put it in the bathroom. And then I said, right, you go into the toilet, go now, take it with you. And he's done it. So,
and I think sometimes there's nagging. I think Roy might want to say something then.
Be gone.
I think you answered it anyway. I was going to say, because there must be a registry somewhere, because mine was sent through the post.
Yeah.
And like Jenny said, my missus was nagging me,
Yeah.
so I left it in the bathroom and then just did it. But you think, I can't understand why people wouldn't do it, because it wasn't a complicated thing to do. It was a pleasant thing to do,
Yeah.
but it wasn't a complicated thing to
No.
do.
It's easy, isn't it?
If it's going to save your life, for want of a better word, do it. Just do it.
We
Yeah,
did some
definitely.
we did some training not too long ago to practice nurses, and they had to look at cases in their practice and to see how someone was diagnosed with cancer. And there was one of the girls last week that said the lady, she'd been diagnosed from a bowel screening, caught early, curative surgery, you know, no symptoms, nothing. So that's the thing with screening, you've not got any symptoms, so no symptoms, unaware of it, but had curative treatment just from, you know, taking that time to do your bowel screening. It's really one of the screening programs that's very successful in picking up cancer early.